He's kind of died in popularity in the last year or so, but I just want to point our attention back to someone called Bryan Johnson. First of all, I don't understand why he is in any way controversial. Like, I independently discovered his channel, started watching his videos, and like knew there was controversy around him, and just thought, like, genuinely was thinking, why is there any controversy here? Now, I could do some kind of like societal, psychological analysis of why collectives of people are ungrateful or something like that, but I think the more useful thing to do would be to instead look at some of the underlying ideas behind like Bryan Johnson's whole brand, as opposed to him as an individual, because some of the ideas here go far deeper than something like his personal brand or even biology itself. Okay, and the logic that brought me to the thought that perhaps death is not inevitable is that I stopped seeing ideas as literally just coming out of the sky. So right now, everyone subconsciously, whether they acknowledge it or not, has ideas about things that literally are just like fixed in their mind as being absolute truths that literally descended to us from the sky. So death is inevitable is like a clear example of that. Humans have to die. Okay, why? Old age. Okay, but what does that actually mean? When you peel back the layers, you realize that the underlying assumption here really isn't very well thought out. Like, there's no concrete reason as to why this is the case. The human body is really just many thousands of very complex systems constantly interacting with each other all the time in different ways. That's interesting. So where can we see clear mechanistic processes then in the body? Oh, well, when you experience this kind of emotion, well, there's actually a neurochemical signal that's happening in the brain, and we can describe it as such. Describe, it's not objectively that, and I'll explain that more later. We die because there's some kind of accumulation of cell damage that causes some kind of heart problem or something like that. It's a clear mechanistic process that we can similarly describe. And the point is that when you start to see the building blocks of how something is described, it really demystifies it, and you kind of circle back to the original question, and you kind of think to yourself, well, if we understand the process that's happening here, like we can clearly see at which point we would have to tackle the issue to fix it. So is death preventable? And I think that's where I'll leave that train of thought, because this video isn't really about the biology of the human body and whether there is some way to prevent like cell mutation or cell damage or something like this so that you can actually live forever. Nor is it some kind of philosophical analysis about whether like living forever is even possible in any way, because I think there's a couple more useful realizations that we can actually take from this instead. First, we need to understand that striving for immortality is not an all or nothing game. So something like what Bryan Johnson is doing, even if he doesn't become immortal, even if he doesn't live forever, just the byproduct of striving in that direction could be the difference between living till 80 years old and being, you know, slow and sick by the end of your life versus living to 120, 130 years old and being fit and healthy right till the end. It's very much like the saying that goes, reach for the stars, so if you fail, you land on the moon. Now, I've never liked that saying because it's actually quite stupid. And the reason it's stupid is because if I'm happy with landing on the moon, even though the objective was to reach the stars, then clearly I was just lying to myself. Like, clearly the real objective was just to reach the moon, and I was just saying, yeah, but I'm going to try and reach the stars, but actually I was always happy with the moon. So I don't like viewing it that way. The way I would rephrase it, go in the direction of the stars and then just land wherever you land, right? So go in the direction of some greater ambitious target, not necessarily setting it as the objective, and then just land wherever you land, and it will be somewhere along the way to that objective. The next more important insight that we can actually take from this is that it doesn't really have anything to do with biology or death itself at all. What this whole thing that we've just been looking at is actually a brilliant demonstration of is something I talk about on the channel all the time, and that is systems thinking. So I usually address this through the lens of mathematics. What does the mathematician do? They look at a real system and they make it abstract and they generalize it and they apply principles from other domains into it. But that's exactly what we're doing here. It's not necessarily restricted to mathematics, even though mathematics is the main place where we see this explicitly stated. So everything we say about biology, financial markets, physics, whatever domain it may be, the point is that we're just describing something that we see in terms of abstract names and structures. This is literally almost, you could say, what makes us human. This is like the core human trait. We assign structure and names to things. And I want to be really clear that these are just descriptions. Like, there is no objective truth to these things necessarily, right? So it's the same kind of reason that I wouldn't say, for example, oh yeah, we understand how this feeling manifests in your brain because we can like map it out in terms of neurological processes, etc. So it's meaningless. Like, that's a stupid way of thinking, because we're still just describing a system. We're not saying anything about the objective truth of that system. It's kind of like, for example, saying that a bird is not flying. What's actually happening is that the air particles are pushing its wings up. Like, yeah, but that's what fucking flying is. The point is that this is a clear demonstration of how powerful mathematical thinking is as a meta skill, and how widely applicable it actually is outside of mathematics. Because when I say mathematical thinking, right now you're thinking of some old guy at like a blackboard and he's like writing equations and shit. But the reality is that anything that you do can be mapped out in the same kind of way. So it's not going to be equations on a blackboard, but it's going to be repeated. Even something like intuition is just repeated learned behavior. So when I slap you across the face, you may experience anger, and we can equally map out the process of how and why that happens. And we can do remarkable things with that. If you want to learn more about how we do that practically, I've made a full course specifically for that purpose, where I extracted the meta skills from studying formal mathematics and turned it into a practical framework that extends into anything you do in day-to-day life. First link in the description will send you to a newsletter where if you sign up using that, you will get 50% off the full course when it launches. Although I should mention that spaces for that are almost full, and the course will launch within a couple days of the upload of this video. We're pretty close to 1,000 subscribers, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to keep seeing more analysis like this. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. But that's all I have to say for now. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.